Hello everybody, and welcome to another uncanny episode of History of the Marvel Universe. The topic of this video was voted on by Patreon supporters. If you would also like to vote in monthly polls and help support the channel, you can sign up for $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. Tabitha Smith was born in Roanoke, Virginia, but lived in Jonestown, Pennsylvania with her father, Martin Lewis Smith. Her mother left when she was too young to remember, and her father told her that she passed away. She had two different stepmothers growing up, one of which was a woman named Mandy, who her father would constantly argue with, while little is known of the other. As a youth, Tabitha was often talkative, flirtatious, and mischievous. Her explosive mutant power first manifested shortly after her 13th birthday. By focusing, she could generate balls of energy that would detonate into a burst of concussive force upon mental command, earning her the nickname Boom Boom. However, her father reacted poorly to her mutant nature and became physically abusive. After hearing rumors of a safe haven for mutants in upstate New York, Tabitha ran away from home and began making her way there. Inspired by heroic mutants like the X-Men, she considered various code names like Time Bomb. But then the train Tabitha was on neared a being known as the Beyonder. We've talked about him on the channel before, most notably in my Molecule Man video, so you can watch that for more information on him. The important thing for today is that he was a being from outside the known cosmos with seemingly limitless power but little understanding of humanity. And so when the train approached, rather than simply moving himself, he disassembled the train and placed the passengers on the ground without harming them. Mistakenly believing him to be a mutant like herself, Tabitha followed the Beyonder and introduced herself. And she also showed him the swollen eye her father had left her with before she ran away. The two spoke, and the Beyonder materialized a campsite for them while telling Tabitha about his infatuation with the mutant songstress Dazzler. He then left Boom Boom behind, but the mischievous mutant had placed one of her time bombs in his pocket. Shortly after, while Tabitha was hitchhiking along the interstate, she was picked up by the Beyonder. She was initially afraid of him because of her little prank, but he proved he wasn't angry at her by healing her eye. He then brought her to Xavier's school for gifted youngsters in Westchester, the secret headquarters of the X-Men. However, things didn't go according to plan because the heroes of Earth had plenty of animosity towards the Beyonder after their previous encounters with him. The X-Men and the New Mutants attacked, prompting the Beyonder to toss them aside and leave. Abandoned once again and now afraid of the X-Men, Tabitha fled into the forest. In an attempt to draw the Beyonder back, or die trying, she generated a large time bomb about the size of a beach ball and held it close to her chest as it exploded. Fortunately, the Beyonder did indeed return to save her from herself. He then brought her into space with him, and Tabitha witnessed the space gods known as Celestials. They visited an alien tourist trap built around their armored forms, and Tabitha noted that the Celestials didn't seem to pay them much mind. Annoyed by this, the Beyonder threatened to destroy the universe to goad the space gods into a battle. He successfully subdued the Celestials, something very few beings in the history of creation are even close to capable of, and Tabitha realized that he was far more dangerous than she ever could have guessed. The Beyonder attempted to win her over once again, first by offering to make her more beautiful, then to make her older, and finally to take away her mutant powers. However, what she really wanted at that point was for him to return her to Earth unaltered, which he did. Back in Westchester, Boom Boom quickly contacted the Avengers and warned them about the threat that the Beyonder posed. She agreed to help them lure him into a trap and called him back to their initial campsite. Upon his arrival, a large gathering of Earth's mightiest heroes attacked, and Tabitha Smith slipped away in the confusion. The Second Secret Wars continued without her involvement, but for more on that you can watch the video linked in the description. I will note that Tabitha later claimed to have shared a kiss with the Beyonder, but the veracity of this claim is questionable at best. For what it's worth, if there is literally any truth to this claim, it should be noted that although Tabitha was only 13 at the time, this Beyonder has been described as a child unit himself and was not a fully matured member of his own race. Tabitha lived on the streets for a time after that, at one point squatting in a New York garbage dump. During this time, she was accosted by a violent thug calling himself Tiger and used her powers to kill him in self-defense. Official handbooks have implied that this occurred before her encounter with the Beyonder, but due to the locations involved, it actually makes a lot more sense to place it here. In either case, she was subsequently recruited into the Fallen Angels, a criminal gang led by the teleporting mutant Vanisher. He taught her how to steal, but she was frustrated by the heavy cut he took from her ill-gotten gains, and he didn't appreciate her flippant attitude and practical jokes. Things eventually came to a head when Boom Boom decided to contact X-Factor, a private investigation firm supposedly formed to hunt and capture evil mutants. However, the flaky teenager changed her mind about turning over Vanisher and instead attempted to prank the hunters. But unbeknownst to Tabitha, X-Factor was secretly run by the original X-Men as a way to find and help other mutants. While operating as X-Factor, they would pose as regular humans and wear matching uniforms. However, they also used their old superhero identities with new costumes, calling themselves the X-Terminators when they did so. As a side note, does that seem backwards to anyone else? Would it not have made more sense for the supposed mutant hunting humans to be called the X-Terminators and the superheroes to be X-Factor? Let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, after her prank threatened to expose Iceman's X-Terminator's costume by damaging his uniform, Boom Boom was pursued by him and Beast. She initially fled, but the two caught up with her and convinced her to join them. Partially due to an innocent crush she began developing on Iceman. She trained alongside other young mutants like Rusty Collins and Sally Blevins, aka Skids. However, her prankster nature was a source of frustration for both her teachers and her teammates. One day, while trying to get Beast's attention while he was performing an experiment, Tabitha dropped one of her explosives into a beaker. Beast and Iceman chased her through the building, but Boom Boom was found by another member of the Fallen Angels, Ariel. Using her ability to warp space and make portals through doors, Ariel brought Tabitha back to Vanisher. She rejoined the Fallen Angels for a time and was flirtatious towards her new teammate Madrox the Multiple Man. Other notable members of the group during this time included Sunspot, Warlock, and Banshee's daughter, Siren. Tabitha accompanied the group while they recruited Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur, as well as during an adventure on Ariel's home planet, Coconut Grove. But upon returning to Earth, Boom Boom decided to go back to X-Factor. When she did, she found the complex under attack by an anti-mutant organization called the Right. After seeing her fellow trainees being abducted, Tabitha stowed away on their plane and was brought back to their headquarters in Arlington. She met and attempted to rescue another young recruit, Julio Richter, but ultimately they all had to be saved by the X-Terminators, who dealt with the Right's leader, Cameron Hodge. X-Factor subsequently abandoned their mutant hunting ruse, as well as the X-Terminators' team name, and were hailed as heroes after a public battle with the villainous Apocalypse. And because of this, Boom Boom and the other trainees were dragged into the limelight as well. The kids subsequently helped free the sentient vessel ship from Apocalypse's control, and aided X-Factor against various villains like Infectia and her antibodies, as well as a group of aliens called the Zartans who posed as the Avengers. In the aftermath of that battle, Boom Boom was pleased when one of her time bombs took down Thor, albeit an imposter. But eventually, the members of X-Factor decided to send their trainees to a boarding school thinking they would be safer there. But then two of the younger mutants, Archie and Leech, were abducted by demons from the hell dimension Limbo. This was related to a demonic invasion of New York referred to as the Inferno, which I previously touched on my video about Ilyana Rasputin, linked in the description below. During these events, Boom Boom, Richter, Rusty, and Skids teamed up with another young mutant known as Whiz Kid to form a new incarnation of the X-Terminators. This group then rescued the captive mutant children and helped in the battle against the invading demons. They also fought alongside another team, the New Mutants, whose members included former Fallen Angels, Sunspot, and Warlock. Soon after that, the two teams effectively merged, with Boom Boom, Richter, Rusty, and Skids joining the New Mutants under the purview of X-Factor. Tabitha soon developed a crush on her new teammate Sam Guthrie, aka Cannonball, but her feelings didn't seem to be reciprocated. During this time, the New Mutants lived on board X-Factor's sentient ship, but later moved into an underground bunker beneath the X-Mansion grounds in Westchester. As a member of this group, Tabitha participated in several adventures, notably including a journey to Asgard to save their teammate Danny Moonstar from the death goddess Hela. Time passed, and as Boom Boom started to mature physically, she altered her fashion choices accordingly. However, she was still a teenager and still immature in other regards, sometimes growing frustrated when she didn't capture the full attention of her male allies. For example, while they were captured by a group called the Mutant Liberation Front, Boom Boom got jealous when Cannonball goaded a villain named Dragoness into kissing him. Not knowing that he'd done it to steal the key to their bonds, Boom Boom kissed him, which only served to increase her own infatuation with him. And this was during the time when the group came under the mentorship of the grizzled, time-traveling adventurer, Cable. Now, he intended on recruiting new members and reorganizing the team into an efficient strike force. The roster continued to shift, with Richter, Sunspot, and most of the others leaving for various reasons. Boom Boom and Cannonball both decided to stay with Cable, and a romance did begin to blossom between them. The newly assembled team was dubbed X-Force and included Cable, Feral, Domino, Shatterstar, Warpath, Cannonball, and of course, Tabitha, who started calling herself Boomer, although the name Boom Boom continued to stick. Things didn't always go smoothly with this new team, and Tabitha got along poorly with Feral, particularly after Cannonball was injured in a training exercise with the animalistic mutant. This team encountered the likes of AIM, Black Tom Cassidy, the Juggernaut, and a brotherhood of evil mutants led by Toad. It was during that battle that Cannonball was seemingly killed by the villain Sauron. However, he fully recovered, leading some to speculate that he was part of the supposedly immortal subset of mutants called the Externals. Operating outside the law, this group also clashed with government-sanctioned teams like Weapon Prime, which included Boom Boom's old ally, Richter. He tried to warn her that Cable was turning them into the very thing they used to fight against. Tabitha did wonder if he was right about that, but she convinced Richter to join up with X-Force after they were separated from Cable. But soon after that, they were targeted by the X-Men and X-Factor after an assassination attempt on Professor X was blamed on Cable. It turns out, however, that the real culprit was a man named Strife, the leader of the previously mentioned Mutant Liberation Front, who also just so happens to be a clone of Cable from the future. In the subsequent battle against the MLF, Boom Boom and Cannonball fought with Rusty and Skids, both of whom had been brainwashed by Strife. During the fight, Tabitha's jaw was broken by Skids, but even that wasn't enough to curb her talkative nature. She and Sam defeated and apprehended their opponents, who were later freed from Strife's control. After that conflict was resolved, Tabitha decided to design a new costume for herself as Boomer. She also made outfits for the other members of X-Force, including former Fallen Angels, Siren and Sunspot, and with Cable believed to be dead, the team continued to operate independently. However, he eventually resurfaced, alive and well, and returned to lead the team once again. Tabitha, for one, was glad to see that Cable survived his encounter with Strife. While the team's roster continued to shift, not always for pleasant reasons, Boomer and Cannonball continued their relationship, fighting side by side as members of X-Force. At one point, they attempted to take some time away from the team to visit Cannonball's family in Kentucky, but even this vacation wasn't without incident. But before they fully returned, Tabitha told Sam that she loved him for the first time. But then the two started spending less time together when Cannonball became a full-fledged X-Man, placing the two on different squads. Although this was around the time that Boomer and X-Force moved into the X-Mansion, starting a new era for the team, complete with new matching costumes. While staying there, Tabitha took an interest in the savage mutant Sabretooth, who was being held prisoner in the Danger Room after a battle with Wolverine had left him brain damaged. For 3 full weeks, Tabitha brought Sabretooth milk and tended to him, despite warnings from Cannonball and others to stay away from him. And it seems their concerns were not without merit, as Sabretooth attempted to take advantage of Tabitha's kindness. When she found out that he had been faking his condition for at least part of the time that she had been doting on him, she was absolutely livid and confronted him. However, Sabretooth took advantage of Boomer's emotional state and goaded her into attacking him with her time bombs. Because of his healing factor, Sabretooth quickly recovered, freeing himself from the damaged bonds. The X-Man Psylocke was able to save Boomer's life, but was grievously injured by an escaping Sabretooth, leaving Tabitha traumatized. After that, she returned to Pennsylvania to visit her father, seeing him for the first time in years. The two spoke for hours, but their reconciliation was interrupted by 2 villains, Sebastian Shaw, Black King of the Hellfire Club, and Holocaust, the son of Apocalypse from an alternate timeline. These two blew up the Smiths' trailer home. Tabitha's father was injured but survived, while she was captured by the villains. This was also that she and other members of X-Force could be brainwashed as part of a plot to use them to defeat Cable. This ultimately failed and the team was freed once again, but these recent events caused a dramatic personality shift in Tabitha. Adopting a harsher demeanor and a bleaker outlook, she gave herself a new haircut as well as a new code name, Meltdown. Her new attitude was soon evident during a battle in which she forced the Blob to swallow one of her time bombs, threatening to kill him. And it seemed like she might have done so if Siren and Domino hadn't convinced her to remove and reabsorb it. Although this does demonstrate that by this point, Tabitha had developed a significant level of control over her explosive plasma balls. As time passed, her heart slowly softened again. She began to resemble her old self, albeit a more mature version. When Meltdown later had the opportunity to kill a commander in the anti-mutant strike force, Operation Zero Tolerance, who captured her and several other members of X-Force, she elected to spare her life rather than to make her a martyr. After those events, several members of the team, including Meltdown, Warpath, Siren, Sunspot, and Danny Moonstar, decided to leave together, declaring their independence from Cable and hitting the road. And during this time, Tabitha found herself growing close with Sunspot, resulting in the two kissing during the Burning Man festival. And soon after that, they were caught in their motel room by Cannonball, who angrily broke up with Tabitha, although he did later rejoin the team, claiming that he was over what happened. Sunspot meanwhile pursued a relationship with Tabitha, but she kept brushing him off. During this time, she met with her father again, who had married a woman named Wanda Jo Bielowski, now his 4th wife. She also learned that the two of them joined a controversial religion called the Triune Understanding, which we actually spoke of in detail on my video about the 3D Man. Martin Smith tried to recruit his daughter into the church as well, but given its reputation as a New Age cult, Tabitha had no interest. There are, of course, many more X-Force adventures that Tabitha was involved with, both before and after this, which we wouldn't have time to cover in detail this week. In one instance, during a battle with their former ally Feral, Siren was slashed across the throat, severing her vocal cords. Surgery saved her life, but she lost the ability to speak, effectively depowering her, and she wandered off. Tabitha didn't think that Siren should be alone, but Sunspot insisted that looking for her was pointless if she didn't want to be found. Thinking he lacked empathy, Tabitha decided to put a definitive stop to their burgeoning relationship before it progressed any further. There was also an incident in which the world's mutant population had their powers deactivated by the mad geneticist, the High Evolutionary. While this was pretty brief in the grand scheme of things, Tabitha was watching Cannonball fly when it first happened, and so she witnessed him plummet into the San Francisco Bay. She dove in after him, and fortunately both were recovered by the Harbor Patrol. Sam was hospitalized for a time but ultimately made a full recovery. During this time, Tabitha encountered a young mutant named Kevin who had also lost the ability to fly. Not understanding why he'd lost his powers, Kevin was determined to prove himself and prepared to jump from the top of a water tower. A crowd gathered, but fortunately Tabitha was able to push her way through and save the boy before he hit the ground. Sometime later, X-Force joined forces with former British intelligence operative Pete Wisdom, who trained them in covert ops for about half a year. Under his guidance, Tabitha learned to focus her powers in ways other than time bombs, like projecting streams of plasma from her fingertips or creating hard light blades. She also received extensive training in hacking and manipulation of digital information. X-Force continued using what they learned as a covert strike team even after Wisdom faked his death. During this time, Tabitha and Sam rekindled their relationship, but this ultimately didn't last forever. Meanwhile, with Meltdown and the others operating in secret, another group of mutants usurped the X-Force name in an effort to claim fame and fortune. Tabitha's group came out of hiding to challenge these clout seekers, and while they were unable to dissuade them from using the X-Force label as reality TV stars, this new team did eventually change their name to X-Statics. After that, Tabitha rejoined Cable and helped with his own underground operation against the clandestine Weapon X project. When Cable briefly reformed X-Force, Meltdown joined that version of the team as well, alongside old allies Shatterstar, Warpath, and Sunspot. During this time, Tabitha not only displayed proficiency with bladed weapons due to her training, but also demonstrated a new use of her powers, the ability to channel her plasma energy into metal instruments like swords. Later, she was one of several heroes contacted by a man named Dirk Anger, the director of the highest anti-terrorism effort, or HATE. Alongside Monica Rambeau, Elsa Bloodstone, Machine Man, and the Captain, Tabitha became a member of a new task force, the Nextwave Squad. And she worked well with the squad, even becoming close friends with her teammate Elsa. However, she soon discovered that the team was being funded by the corrupt Beyond Corporation, who had manipulated their minds. The Nextwave Squad banded together against HATE, and Tabitha proved instrumental in defeating agents of the Beyond Corporation. Together, they took down the apparent leader of the corporation, an insane alternate reality version of Devil Dinosaur. Although, funnily enough, later revelations would suggest that the true masterminds behind the Beyond Corporation were rogue members of the Beyonders race, referred to by other Beyonders as debaser units, but that's a whole other story. After the Nextwave Squad went their separate ways, Tabitha decided to abandon the name Meltdown and returned to her former Boom Boom identity. She subsequently relocated to San Francisco, where she aided the X-Men before joining them on their island headquarters, Utopia, and even later returned there seeking peace after it had been abandoned. More recently, she joined most of mutant kind on the living island Krakoa when Professor X and Magneto worked together to establish a legally recognized nation for their people. And in this new era, Boom Boom has helped scared young mutants find a place to belong, the same way others once did for her. And that's all I've got for you this week. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more marvelous content. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!